Going to use the wondrous, massive mega synth that is Omnisphere. This is a very worthwhile investment, I think, if you're looking for basically a one-stop source for sounds. It's a 50 gig library, which includes Hollywood strings actually sampled. For example. And I've had this for a year now, and there are just so many sounds in it that I'm not even... this is pads and strings just here, and a lot of it's actually sampled from real things. Every time you play a note on your keyboard or whatever, it's a recording of an orchestra playing that note. So it's a very, very powerful thing to have at your disposal. It's also a very, very capable synth in itself. So it can actually generate the sound as well as playing back sampled sounds. So I'm going to use arp and rhythm, and I'm going to go for a pluck up that I am already familiar with in the interest of saving some time. So this is basically just like that. So the arpeggiated ostinato that I had in my track Paradox basically went sort of like this. Except an octave up. So what I've actually got there is just, those are the actual notes. And I'm relying on the arpeggiated power of that synthesizer to do all the kind of the nitty-gritty work for me. So yeah, basically I'm going to come up with an ostinato, which is going to fit in this sort of stem of melody or atmospheric background, depending on how I use it in the mix. Something like that. I used to use a MIDI keyboard quite a bit, and I suggest people do. I'm so used to working with this matrix editor now that it's just easier that way. Let's go with that for now. Good old sidechain compressor. I'm going to do some treatment on this. The only real EQing I do in the early stages of a project is just bass cuts, really. But that's okay, but I would still like to kind of basically make that a bit more alive, because at the moment it is kind of straight out of the synth and it's going for that whole VST trance thing that I'm going for. So, well, not going for. So, with Omnisphere, they have this cool thing called the orb, which lets you basically just screw around with all the settings of the synth in a very, very fun and looks like a bit like a dartboard or something. And basically this lets you change the pattern just a little bit. So what I'm going to do here is basically record some screwing around in this lovely little thing here. And I was going to say, if you're not going to use something like Omnisphere's orb, you can also assign parameters within Ableton, and you can use this little baby down here, which is a hell of a lot of fun. And very cool for live stuff as well, if you're playing like a live PA show, for example. So yeah, gonna hit record on here. Just as an example. So let's, I think probably the second half of that was better than the first. So now we have this pattern that has a bit more movement on it, which needs to be selected properly. And so I think that still needs a bit of work before it's sounding right. If something sounds a bit too synthy, you can usually turn the cutoff on its filter down. At this stage, I'm going to say that that combined with this is probably confusing the issue a little bit. So I'm going to remove that line for now. Sorry, that clap was getting to me. Okay, so yeah, that's basically getting an ostinato in there, which you can screw around with it the whole way through. You can use those automation parameters. For example, if you get like that little XY controller in Ableton and you assign it to, say, for example, the filter cutoff on a synth, which is like the #1 way to rise and fall the urgency of your synth, and also maybe like the release function on it, which is how long the note goes for, which is pretty much what I was controlling there with that orb, but it's all just set up in there for you.